Welcome to Krav Life. My name is Paul Simos, and I got a special guest with me today, Mr. Heinrich Hayes. And Mr. Heinrich Hayes is from South Africa. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation for me to speak to you guys.
Nice. So let's dig a little into your past and how did you always take Krav Maga, or did you have a martial art background before Krav Maga?
Oh, I had a big martial arts background. I started in primary school already.
Oh, nice.
I did seven different styles of martial arts. And then back in 2000, I got in a terrible thing where in an armed robbery where the guys tried to hijack my vehicle. They tied me up with wires and tried to beat me to death. Then they pulled me in front of the car, trying to drive over me. And as they drove, I rolled out of the way, and I managed to get my wrists loose and jump up and run like I've never ran in my life. So I realized the day that they put a gun to my head is that all my martial arts did not prepare me for something like that. So it was a terrible thing for me to survive. And after that, I just realized I need to find something better. Back in 2000, Steven Seagal was huge. So I thought I'll try some Aikido, but I quickly realized, no, that's also it's still a sport.
No.
And then I discovered Krav Maga, and I never looked back again.
Wow.
It's really a phenomenal system.
That's an incredible story. I couldn't even imagine. How old were you when that happened?
29. I remember it was just before my 30th birthday.
29 years old. Wow. That's got to be something that really sticks with you. So you started your Krav Maga training, and that was in and around what year or what time?
2001.
2001. Okay. So you've been in training in Krav for a long time then.
It's 20 years now.
Yeah. And so how do you, did you have, so you also own a personal protection company, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have that company at that time or no? When that incident happened?
I were in the security industry just briefly, but when this happened to me, I just realized is that no one will ever have that kind of control over me again.
Mm-hmm.
I also decided on that very weekend, I decided I have to teach other people not to go through what I went through. So I immediately started and you know what, not a day goes by that I don't train. So for the last 20 years, every day I just better and better and better myself and the people around me. So I'm creating a circle of fire. South Africa is the second most dangerous country in the world. Next to Venezuela, we are the murder capital of the world. And so this is really, it's going wild here in South Africa. We've got more than 70 murders every day committed in this country. Wow. So there's really a need for something like Krav Maga here in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. And so when you started learning Krav after that horrific incident, and how did you know that Krav Maga was the answer?
Well, I had plenty of experience doing 7 different styles of martial arts. And when I discovered Krav Maga, I left all of that immediately. I didn't do one day of martial arts after that. I just focused on Krav Maga. It was so impressive to me. It is, I'm preaching to the choir now, and I understand most of your listeners are Krav Maga students as well. It is just, you can't compare something as realistic as Krav Maga to any kind of martial arts.
Mm-hmm. And so the thing is, like most Krav Maga students won't have the same, have not gone through the same sort of experience that you went through, right? So for them, their understanding of Krav Maga and how it can help them is not from experience. It's just it's a different type of understanding, I imagine, that you have, or insights into the techniques. The industry that you work in and the things that you've gone through, does that make you better able to identify techniques that work versus ones that won't work?
Oh, yes. I've seen some terrible Krav Maga out there. I don't know if you've been on the website to look at some of our videos, but I think we've created something phenomenal. I've surrounded myself with instructors with also a background in many various kinds of martial arts. And so the insights and the inputs that I see from all of us, we're creating something so amazing, and we train so realistic. And it is, well, I look at many Krav Magas out there, and then I think it's been diluted with the martial arts. You know what? I don't know what your system are like, but we do not even have a belt system in our studio. We just feel is that there's two levels. There's beginner and instructors, but out there, our enemy are all the same. Whether you're a white belt or a black belt, a beginner or an instructor level, your attacker out there will be the same person. So we do not have any competitions. We do not have any kind of grading. We just focus on what's happening out there in the real world.
Yeah. And so where exactly are you located, and like who do you train with?
We've got studios in the Eastern Cape, in Mossel Bay, and in George. I don't know whether you're familiar with South Africa. Then we've got the studio in Lenasia and one in Brakpan in Gauteng, very close to Johannesburg.
Okay. And what is the organization?
It's Golan Krav Maga International.
Oh, okay. So it's the same organization. Okay. Oh, that's cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about the organization? Like, how was it founded and all that stuff?
Well, once I started, I learned from a lot of people, and 7 years after the Krav Maga, I realized is that everybody tends to go, and I've actually been criticized by people for my move. They say, "Oh, that is not Krav Maga," and people don't understand Krav Maga must be ever evolving. I see Krav Maga schools who are still using moves that was used in 1947, pistol releases. Now, your enemy, the attackers, they also they progress, and they get new techniques and more ways of attacking you. So it's to me, the system must be constant training. Every Monday we spent on developing the system. And it's just amazing is that the instructors that surround me, it is like we all are just blessed with a phenomenal combat mind to think of a movement. And to me, the biggest test of a move is when a small girl can do the move effectively on a large guy. And if something works, if you think it's a multiple attack realistically and see if someone can survive a multiple attack. I've seen many watered down systems. I've seen systems that's been influenced by other kinds of martial arts. And end of the day, the Krav Maga looks more like karate or boxing, and it defeats the purpose of it. Now, we focus as much on offensive training as defensive. And dirty fighting. Well, if you want to survive in a real life scenario, you need to pick up a teaspoon and be able to take someone out holding a teaspoon in your hand. So any kind of a weapon, you need to really master those techniques.
Yeah, no, I agree that the effectiveness of a Krav Maga technique has to be measured by the smallest person doing it on the largest person. If somebody small cannot protect themselves, then that technique is not a good technique. And you're right, there is a lot of bad Krav Maga out there, and fortunately for the viewers that are looking for more or looking for a Krav Maga studio to train with, look for an instructor that's willing to throw out a technique if it doesn't work. Right. Yeah. That's also my personal belief is that, and because I come from a karate background, and the whole thing with karate is we're doing the same techniques that were done 200 years ago. And why I fell in love with Krav Maga was that the techniques are evolving. If something doesn't work, we get rid of it and we do something else. We try to figure it out. And that's what real Krav Maga is. And that everybody has a right to defend themselves, and we need to figure out how they do it. But you did touch on an important point, and you were talking about almost, I can't remember the exact words, but you were kind of indicating like a combat type mindset. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, I like to work on the psychology part of the attack also. Shakespeare said it best. He said, "Everything is ready if the mind be so." So I feel it's something that's lacking in many injuries. They're not preparing the student psychological for an attack. So with my bodyguards, just last week, we had a 5-hour seminar on the psychology of combat, what you can expect your body to do and to behave in deadly encounters. So every class, if I give a 1-hour class, I would spend at least 5 minutes at the end of the class to prepare the guys mentally as well. You can be so well physically prepared, but if your mind isn't up to it, I feel that is something that's lacking from many systems, and that takes away the sport part of it for people to realize is, wow, this is serious stuff. If I do this move, I can seriously kill or injure my attacker. And in order to do that, if you think back in the last 70 years, only they started to study the psychology of combat. In World War I and World War II, there were very, very little information for us on that. The people didn't understand what's going to happen to the body and how difficult it is to kill someone. Now, for you to teach a student how to do knife fighting, how to use a firearm and actually shoot an attacker, there's a lot of mental preparation that needs to go into something like that, and it is lacking in the industry.
I do agree. Can you give us like some quick examples of certain things that you're finding that instructors are not teaching that they should be teaching, at least at a very basic level, psychologically?
Let's think about knife fighting.
Okay.
And bayonets was removed from almost all the firearms all around the world in the 80s because they realized the soldier can't use a bayonet. And the victims who had stab wounds from bayonets was actually post-mortem. So they realized no soldier actually stabs another soldier with a bayonet because it is so close and personal. You actually look the person in the eye when you stab him. And so now we teach students knife fighting, especially in a country like Canada. Oh no, you've got firearms there.
Yeah, we do.
Now, in many countries, you can't have firearms. Let's talk about Australia, for instance. If you prepare a student to defend himself and his family with a knife, and you do not give the psychological input that you need in order to do that, it is impossible. The attacker will just take the knife off him because he won't be able to do it. To kill someone with a knife is probably the most difficult thing that any person would ever do in their whole lives. What if they need to go into that situation? Let's say a lady who's been attacked by 5 men and is about to get gang raped. If she haven't been psychologically prepared to use the knife that's hanging around her neck, she will not use it. Those guys will actually rape her. The first time that an army were effective killer was in the Vietnam War. For the first time ever, they prepared them psychologically to actually pull the trigger when the enemy is shooting at them. With firearm training, I usually ask the students, if someone wants to kill you, will you shoot back and kill them? And they all say yes. Then I would ask them, if a woman shoots at you, would you shoot back at her? And you can see slight hesitation. Then they say yes. Then I ask, if a pregnant woman is shooting at you, would you shoot back? And then you can see then they start. They start to hesitate. And then the biggest question, if a child shoots at you, would you shoot back in order to save yourself? And then the people really, really hesitate. And that is what happened in Vietnam. For the first time, they sent soldiers to war who could actually squeeze the trigger. Back in Korea and World War I and II, they reckon only 15% of the soldiers were active killers. So 85 of them was just there. They ate the food, they filled up the tents and the transport. They wasted all that money on them because they weren't active in the killing at all. And
Hmm.
and in Vietnam, for the first time ever, it went up to 90%. So psychologically, that was the first army that was properly prepared in order to go and kill. But they were confronted with children with AK-47s, so their training prepared them for men and for women, but not for children. Now, if that just gives you an example of how much preparedness you need to do in your mind to be a phenomenal student in class and to remember all the moves, and you do exceptionally well, if you haven't got that mental input and the psychology actually to go and follow through with all your training, then on the moment of truth, you might actually freeze and not do what's needed to done to survive that deadly encounter.
That's a good point. So how would you prepare a civilian to pull the trigger or to kill someone with a knife?
Now, many firearm owners firearm instructors, they would not do what I suggest. What I'm going to give you an example now.
Yeah.
So in class, we use real firearms in the training.
Mm-hmm.
We would take the ammunition, we would put it away in the safe, we would lock the safe, we would make those firearms safe 3 times. So the student will make it safe in the making safe area. I'll make it safe also. Then another instructor will make that firearm safe. So for 3 times, that firearm was made safe before it even goes on the mat. Then we train with real firearms on the mat. Firearm that actually cycles, a firearm that you can actually point at your friend and squeeze the trigger. Now, just by doing something like that, you teach yourself to actually point a real firearm at a real person and pull the trigger. I do it as a test with a group of people when I do a combat shooting course. I make my firearm safe and I pass it around to all the students in class. Then I hand that firearm to one student and they said, make that firearm safe once more. Now the firearm has been made safe like 7, 8 times. Then I stand at 5 meters. I say, rack the firearm, point it at my chest and squeeze the trigger. And I would run at that person. And I must say about 8 out of 10 times, I would cross that 5 meters and grab the pistol out of their hands before they can squeeze the trigger. It just shows you people have got so much respect for firearms, what is good, because one of the major rules of firearms is never point a firearm at something that you are not willing to shoot and kill. Mm-hmm. So it's been so cemented into our minds is that very few people can actually squeeze the trigger on the moment of truth. Now, this training method works. They used it with the soldiers in Vietnam by taking away the bullseye targets and put very realistic silhouettes of targets with a terrorist standing with a rifle in his hand pointing at them. So they go that far to make it realistic. Even on our shooting ranges, we shoot at silhouette targets, the silhouette of a body. So we do all of that mental preparedness in order for the student to actually be able to squeeze the trigger and survive. We are very, very, very fortunate. We've had 8 attacks on our students in the last 20 years. All of them survived it, and most of the time the attackers didn't survive the encounters. And I can say with so much gratitude in my mind is that none of them ever hesitated. When the deadly encounter arose, they could actually squeeze the trigger and save themselves and their families. So the training does work. Even with knives, in class we don't work with real knives because that is just stupid.
Yeah.
But I know of an incident where a guy with a real knife, they did training and he cut a vein in his arm and he just survived it. He had to go to a vein surgeon to attach that vein again. So if you do something like that, I feel it is irresponsible of the instructor. And you can't build like that. If your student gets the slightest of cut in that class, he probably won't even return, and then everybody loses out. So, but when you train with real knives, it's important for you to vividly imagine all the cuts and all the stabs. Now, we work with rubber knives, and they hurt like hell if you get stabbed or even cut with it. So it helps. We've got very blunt steel knives that give you blue marks and it just don't penetrate the skin, but they hurt like hell if you stab someone with them. So I feel that way, they are still scared of getting hurt, but they still come back next week because they don't get cuts that's going to close them and scare them away from the system forever. So we implement that kind of things, but most of all, I always tell the students, you know what, we train hard and your body feels it the next day, but you can do today's move that we've done. You can do it 100 times. You can do it in your mind. You can do it whilst sitting on the toilet, whilst sitting in church. You can vividly imagine. And end of the day, that's how you get something into your mind, is just by reliving that situation and make it as real as possible.
Now, so it's really good that that you're preparing your students. Do you also deal with like the after effects of an encounter? Like, do you touch on that aspect at all, like that psychology and post-traumatic stress?
Many times the students who walks into my studios has been victims of violent attacks. And you know what, to me, let's take a very current situation. This people was held up in a home invasion. The attackers had knives. They tied up the husband and the kids, and they pulled the mother through the house by her hair, and she had to, thank God, this family survived the ordeal. Then they came to me for training, and they really felt they need to empower themselves, because especially the husband, he was broken, and you can just imagine that there's nothing worse than people wanting to kill you. I've been there, I've done that. And for this family, I don't take them to the mat and I ask them, show me what the guy did with a knife so I can show you how to get out of that situation. No, for 2 weeks, it's important for me, for them and for me, to not chase them away. So we will not touch a knife for about 2 months, or till I feel they are ready, because the attack was with knives. If it was a pistol, I would work with knives and then only touch a pistol within 2 months. But for me, it's very important for these guys to do combat fitness. They must punch and hit the bags. I must teach them hammer punches and elbows and knee strikes. So they will do combat fitness, and that's it. I will not put them into violence yet, because I feel there's a healing process that must take place. I don't believe in psychologists. And sorry if there's listeners today who's a psychologist, but you can lie on a couch and you can talk about this for years without a real effect. So I feel the best thing after deadly encounter, what I do believe in, is swimming. It is very relaxing. It really takes away the tension and a lot of the trauma. But then again, it is just to beat it. Even if you haven't got a punching bag, just put a pillow on your bed and hit it 100 times with an elbow with a hammer punch. But you need to get the toxicity out of your body. And so, for me, firstly, is a very, very physical thing to get rid of it. Before you can start building, you first have to get all of that evil out of your system. So that is the time that you can get comfortable with the other students in the class and get comfortable with the instructors. And then the instructor must make a call. And on the day that he feels, yes, I feel they are ready now, only then you introduce the knife. And then you can ask the student, okay, so exactly tell me, what did the attacker do with the knife? And tonight we're going to concentrate on that and see if we can work through that. So it is a process. I made the mistake very early as an instructor. We had 2 girls in class, and we did firearm training, but with rape defense moves, where you actually push them to the ground and you use a pistol on the ground. So I was working with the one girl, and the other instructor were working with the other girl, and I just heard this girl, she was swearing profusely, and I thought maybe he touched her inappropriately or something, and she grabbed the stuff and she ran out of the studio. And I asked my instructor, what happened? He said, nothing, I don't know, she just freaked out. So her friend phoned me about half an hour after this, the friend that went there with her, and she said, this girl was raped. It was in an alleyway. It was dark. So I said, oh, you should have told me. We should never have done this move. If only I knew. So I said to her, please tell your friend to come back. I'm sorry for this. I didn't know. I can help. I know I can. And it's my nature to help people in situations like that. But she never came back, never. And then I learned a big lesson that evening. So now if I get a new student, I would ask them, because you just met them. And if you just met the girl, she's not going to tell you, I've been gang raped or something. So what I do ask the students as they walk into the studio, I would just ask them, please, I don't want detail. If you do not want to tell me, do not tell me, but at least I need to know if you've been victims of a violent attack. So at least in a way you can prepare yourself on how the classes must run. As I said, this is a rough country in South Africa. And I found that about 40% of my students was victims of violent attacks in some way.
So in essence, the training is the therapy, right?
Yes.
So the empowerment and the strength that you get from the training is what helps a lot of the students get through it, as long as it's done in a sensitive manner and a certain progression.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I aim to do at the end of the day is to attack them even more violently than what the attackers attack them, and then they must survive a situation like that. So we recreated after months of training that we feel ready and they feel ready as well. Then we would recreate that scenario, and they have to survive it. That is the best therapy that you can give. That is healing. That was healing to me, and that was healing to all my students who's been there and to suffer that.
Well, that's that makes complete sense. And for that family that you're talking about, I couldn't even imagine the father in that situation not being able to protect his family. How that would have added an extra layer of emotional baggage for him. I feel for them, and I'm glad that you were able to help them.
Shame. And even the children, when we eventually worked with the knives, and I took a knife and I walked towards the mother, the daughter who saw all of this happen, she freaked out. So I dropped the knife. I picked up the girl because she was 8 years old, and I picked her up and I said, no, this is a friendly place. I showed her the knife. And so even the children became so comfortable with us in the training and in the classes, and they were becoming friends with all of us. And yet, when I walked at the mother with the plastic knife, it brought back so many memories. It was shocking. And so the kids suffer the most out of all of this. You think they are small and they'll get over it fast, or they won't remember it as vividly as our adults, but wow, it makes a big impact on the children.
Wow. So at what point did you get into the security and personal protection business?
I think it was after about a year into the Krav Maga. There was a close protection course that came up, and I just thought, wow, this is something that I would like to do. I've always seen myself as a protector. From school, from my friends, I'm the one stepping up and helping people. And then I thought, well, now those are skills that I would love to do. And I did my close protection course, and I loved it so much. We are currently busy with the close protection course. It's between 30 and 40 days. It depends on the abilities of the students on the course. And it's just phenomenal. It is, you take all the Krav Maga, all the combat training, offensive and defensive, and you put it together in the most amazing course, adding to that risk assessments and your knowledge of the law. So to me, being a bodyguard is like the pinnacle of being a Krav Maga instructor. I recommend all my instructors to become bodyguards also. It just opens up the field of your training so much more.
And so you run the bodyguard training courses, and you guys also offer security protection for clients and stuff like that too, right?
Yes, we do. And unfortunately, here in South Africa, there's many bad guys who want close protection. So it's hard to find, and I'm blessed now. We've got a contract with such a lovely family. Usually when you do close protection, it is the people that you're protecting. They are bad people, and that is why they need all the protection. but we are blessed with a good contract now with a nice family that we're protecting. And I just love working this. As I said in the beginning of the program, I would rather do training than be a bodyguard. But as the situation is in South Africa with the training now, we have to set our. Usually, I just give the training and let the job being done by other bodyguards. But as the situation now with the student count below in the studios, the close protection is a nice add-on to what we're doing. Keeps the pots cooking.
Nice. All right. Well, I definitely think you should write a book on the psychology of Krav Maga and what instructors should be teaching. I think a lot of instructors would benefit from that. I know I would benefit from that as well. If people wanted to get into contact with you and maybe come out to train or do bodyguard course or have you out for a seminar or something like that, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, we've got a Facebook page with Golan Krav Maga International. Please go on that Facebook page. Our contact details, our addresses of our studios here in South Africa are there. We do travel internationally. We've been over to Thailand. We've toured Australia for a year. We've been up in Africa. So I love traveling. Maybe now that I need a COVID passport, I won't travel for a while. I'm just going to wait and see what exactly it is. I've listened to many theories on this, so I'm going to wait for about a year before I get any kind of vaccine. And I pray that you guys who have taken the vaccine already, that you will be okay and healthy. But at the moment, I don't do international travel. But if you want to come to South Africa, you're more than welcome. It's a dangerous country, but it's a beautiful country. But what we here in Brakpan in Gauteng, a small little town in South Africa, we're busy building the best training facility in the whole of South Africa. We've got shooting ranges, a huge studio with a water park, and
Wow.
it is just something phenomenal that we are busy working on now. So we're preparing for international visitors to come, building barracks and stuff. So we are ready for you guys. If you want to come, please contact me, and we would be very happy to have you this site.
Nice. That sounds like it would be lots of fun. All right, sir. I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's definitely been a very interesting conversation on the psychology of Krav Maga, and I'd like to have you on again to talk about it more, as for sure.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I enjoyed talking to you, Paulo.
All right.
Do I pronounce your name right?
Is it Paulo? They're both my names.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being on Krav Life.
Great pleasure.